All right. Thank you. Good morning, councillors, and good morning, members of the community viewing in on live stream, and good morning to our wonderful staff here today. Apologies for the late start. We've been doing some wordsmithing on the motion, ladies and gentlemen. So we'll now get underway with the meeting and do so traditionally by acknowledging the Drumble people. We are in their country and they've been the traditional custodians of this land for thousands of years, and we pay respect to their elders past, present and emerging, as we do to all Indigenous cultures within Livingstone. We have a full attendance today, members. We've got councillors Eastwood and Watson online, as they are unwell, but still willing to participate in the debate today. So thank you, gentlemen, and welcome. And we therefore have no leave of absences or apologies. Now, Councillor Mather, we're on to declarations of interest.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I would like to...
Microphone.
Mr. Mayor, I would like to declare a conflict of interest. We've had a legal opinion to say I do in fact have a conflict because of the nature of the matter, and in accordance with the relevant section of the Local Government Act, I hereby declare my seat vacant for this debate, and trust that you will all have good reasons for doing what you do. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Mather. All right, item 5, councillors' business arising or outstanding from previous meetings. There is none. There are no petitions in item 6. Item 7 is councillor delegate reports, and there are none of those. So that brings us to item 8, which is the notice of motion from Councillor Bello. Now, we have some amendments here, councillors, from the original one posted. So are we happy to adopt the amendments as presented? All right. Can I get a mover and a seconder, please? Moved Councillor Friend. Can I get a seconder? Councillor. All right. All in favour? Thank you. Carried. All right. So the newly revised motion then, councillors, is, and I'll read it for the members of our community viewing on live stream. Thank you. Yeah, because my failing eyes. So we've split the motion into 2 parts, ladies and gentlemen. The first is that Council calls on the Deputy Premier, the Honourable Stephen Miles MP, to provide evidence as to the origin of and basis for the agreement, in inverted commas, of both Livingstone Shire Council and Rockhampton Regional Council to embark on the current boundary review process, as Livingstone Shire Council records only show formal council agreement to the terms of reference for the review. So, Councillor Bello, this is your motion. Did you wish to speak to that? Did you wish to move that for a start? I beg your pardon?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I'd certainly like to move that. Thank you.
All right, well, I'll second it, which will then make debate live. So, please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, councillors and staff that are here today. Look, it may seem pointless to call for an explanation from the state government as to the origins of this boundary review. Yet I actually believe it is fundamental to ensure, in upholding the principles of local government and the oath that I swore and any member of Parliament swore to uphold the principles of local government of transparency, accountable, fairness, those sorts of virtues, that we actually go back to the start before this thing is concluded and determine the provenance. And the word is provenance. And I say that because it's critical to the integrity of any process. The definition of provenance is the history or pedigree of a work of art, manuscript or document, concretely a record of the ultimate derivation and passage of an item through its various owners. This process has had various owners by virtue of a previous council starting this process, yet there's actually no minutes where the decision, like all decisions that we make at this table, are debated on their merits under the system of government that we swear to be a part of, And that provides ultimately the integrity of the decision. And I believe it's incumbent on the state government, as they consider this boundary review, as indeed they're considering other boundary reviews that are going on around Queensland, and many more that may come, or any more that may come, that process can be defended by virtues of the decisions that were made for it to be enacted. We're in a unique situation here in Livingstone and Rockhampton, that it seems that we've got to this stage without there actually being a formal resolution of either council to agree to actually undertake it. So that is why I'm calling on the Queensland Government, the decision makers in this, to be able to defend the process by virtue of referring to a decision that the councils that are implicated in it or involved in it have shown their willingness to start a process, and therefore the Queensland Government, in honouring that process, can refer to that evidence, which I believe, with that evidence lacking, the integrity of this process is of great concern. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bello. Anyone speaking against? Councillor Hutton.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. It gives me no great pleasure to speak against this, but in my understanding of the purpose of why we're here today, it is to ensure that in the undertaking of this process, we're looking to make sure that there is a fair go for all parties. And while individually and collectively there is undoubtedly an interest in understanding the foundation for how we got here, I also believe that we are where we are, and it's about what happens next, and it's about making sure that the Palaszczuk government, who are ultimately the decision maker in this process, are taking on board the full facts, the full details of the sustainability analysis that's provided by Queensland Treasury Corporation, etc., in making a decision that ensures that no council's worse off. My fear with this resolution is that it invests time and asks the government to invest time in defending how we got to the place that we are today. Very clearly on the Electoral Commission Queensland website, it speaks to how did this process start, and it starts with a letter that comes from the local government minister that was sent to Mr Pat Vidgen, the Electoral Commissioner, on the 1st of June 2021, where the Minister for Local Government, the Deputy Premier Stephen Miles, requests a boundary review to be undertaken by the Change Commission. This is something that in the wash undoubtedly would be worth discovering and discussing, but at this point in time, when we are in the decision phase of a process that is much greater, we can't go back to the start and ask, well, how did we get here, or why did this start? What we need to be doing is talking about how do we ensure that the decision that is made is in the best interest of all residents and ratepayers of the Livingstone and Rockhampton and ultimately Central Queensland region. This, to my mind, in that is a distraction and will not ultimately change the outcome, but does provide a divergence of path which complicates and convolutes something that is already a process that I agree does lack integrity from its foundation. But the process has started, the process is underway. There is clear direction provided in terms of reference by the Honourable Stephen Miles as Deputy Premier, and our job is to make sure that we're being the best advocates that we can be on behalf of our community to make sure that this process ensures that no council is worse off and that no ratepayer goes backwards financially, and therefore I won't be supporting this part of the resolution here today.
Thank you, Councillor Hutton. Would anyone else like to speak for? Councillor Friend.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, fellow councillors. In 2020, when this tenure of council started, we were advised within the first month of becoming newly elected that this process had already started through the state. In May of 2020, we had a resolution to say, no, we don't wish it to go ahead. We don't want the boundary review, and we were firm in our decision there. I actually believe that the terms of reference, part of which state that no council will be worse off and both councils must agree. And to find that there has never been any formal council agreement to agreeing to this particular boundary, we would like to place the state on notice and ask them where was the evidence for this to happen. And perhaps this may also help with their decision as well. So I firmly agree with this first point. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor friend. Anyone else speaking against? All right, well, as a seconder, I'll speak in support of this motion. Councillors, all through this process, you'll be aware that I've constantly asked the question, how did this actually start? Where is the documentary evidence to say that Livingstone actually agreed to embark on this process? The question was asked to the previous local government minister, and we actually have a letter from the previous local government minister in 2020 saying or stating that the government's policy around significant boundary reviews requires that both councils agree and both communities must agree. Now, that's a fundamental principle, obviously, and a fundamental government policy, which he has clearly articulated. My concern in not being able to find any evidence within council records that we agreed to this particular journey is of great concern to me, because it goes directly to the integrity of this process. And hence, I am in support of this motion. Anyone else speaking against? Would anyone else like to speak for?
No, I'll speak for, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Eastwood?
Yeah. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yep, should be fine.
Yeah, look, it sort of intrigued me all along this, that since I've been in council, all I've really had is, rumour and innuendo about what really happened to bring this process about. And I totally disagree with, I disagree that origins don't mean that much, and origins mean everything. And the birth of a thing is what gets something, or what gives it legs. And if we just accept that we're already down the path and we're going to, accept that that's all right, I just want to submit that it's not all right. We need to know why we're here. How did we get here? What is the basis for the Honourable Steve Miles to come up to say that we're going to have this review? We've got to have it. Why did we get here? In the end, it's probably not going to change much. But we do, as a council, we need to have those answers. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Eastwood. All right, Councillor Watson, did you want to make any comments on this?
I can't breathe enough to speak, sorry.
No worries, all good. Thank you. No, that's fine. All right, councillors. Councillor Bello, would you like to wrap up?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, members, for your contribution. Look, boundary reviews themselves are not something that are sinister or unreasonable or unusual. That is something. That's why you have a commissioner for the boundary review. That facility is there. Those people are there. That process is there to undertake boundary review. So them themselves are not an issue. But if I was the minister, the good minister Stephen Miles, who I respect enormously, I wouldn't want to be advising the commissioner to undertake a boundary review just because I got up one day and thought it's a good idea to do it. I would feel much more comfortable and protected because two councils had approached me formally to say that they had agreed through debate and a consensus was reached that they would like a boundary review to be undertaken on their behalf. Then the minister can rely on that to say, for these reasons, these councils have come to me and I now therefore will refer it to the Change Commissioner or the Boundary Commissioner. That protects the minister. In the absence of that, it would appear that the minister may have been asked to do a boundary review by, I don't know. Can we find out? It would be good to know. That's why the integrity of a process from the start to finish needs to be documented, it needs to be defendable, and it needs to be accountable. And in the absence of that, I believe that we have a responsibility to point out that there is some imperfections in the way that it would appear that this boundary review has come to being. That's really all it is. So I hope it's not seen as a distraction, but a vital part of the evidence that forms and completes this process from start to finish. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bello. Well, councillors, we'll wrap up debate on this one now and we'll go to the vote. Councillors Eastwood and Watson, given you're online, I'll ask you to say aye or nay. Thank you. So, all in favour?
Aye. Aye.
Okay, carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. All right, councillors, parts 2 and 3 are now going to be dealt with separately. So, part 2...
Part one.
That was part 1. Parts 2 and 3 are going to be dealt with now together. So, beg your pardon, I meant separately from part 1. on your I meant. So part 2 reads as follows, and this is for the benefit of members of the community online. That Council calls on the Deputy Premier, the Honourable Stephen Miles MP, the Queensland Treasurer, the Honourable Cameron Dick MP, and the Member for Keppel, the Honourable Brittany Lauger MP, to confirm the Palaszczuk Government's commitment to a fair go in the boundary review between Livingstone Shire Council and Rockhampton Regional Council by ensuring that Livingstone Shire residents will not go backwards. No, sorry. No, beg your pardon. That no council is financially worse off and that the efforts made by councils, plural since de-amalgamation, to provide sustainable futures for our community are recognised in ensuring no residents go backwards financially in any outcome related to this process. And 2, distributes a full copy of the Livingstone Shire Council submission and the Queensland Treasury Corporation report to each member of the Palaszczuk State Cabinet for their information. Okay, so we'll go into debate. Can I get a mover? Thank you, Councillor Bello. Seconded, Councillor Friend. Thank you. Councillor Bello, do you want to speak to points 2 and 3?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, clearly we're at a stage now in this process that the decision to be made is not in our hands. It's not in Rockhampton's hands, but it's in the hands of the Minister, the Honourable Stephen Miles. This motion calls on the Minister respectfully to ensure a commitment to the local governments that are involved, and predominantly Livingstone, calls on the Minister to, I guess, ensure and provide a sense of relief to the people that they are not going to go financially backwards, whatever the decision is made. The Queensland Labor government prides itself on the ethos or the principle that no worker will be worse off whenever dealing with unions and negotiating contracts around employment. And likewise, I'm calling on the state government that no Livingstone resident or ratepayer will be financially worse off or go financially backwards as a result of this pending decision. If the state government should choose to transfer the suburbs, then I'm calling on the state government to ensure that 93% of the residents and ratepayers are not going to be financially worse off or do not go financially backwards as a result of that decision. That's it, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Bello. Anyone speaking against? Councillor Friend, you seconded. Would you like to speak in support?
Just very briefly, thank you, Mr. Mayor. There's been a lot of talk back and forth, both with Livingstone Shire Council and with Rockhampton Regional Council. To make us financially worse off would be such a travesty, especially for our pensioners. We have to look after our pensioners in this particular shire. We have, almost 1,000 kilometres of unsealed roads that we need to look after also. And this is just going to be such an impost on every ratepayer. So we kindly do ask the state to take this into consideration, as we are a Category 3 council with 40,000 residents, as opposed to Rockhampton with 87,000 residents. And we thank them for their great thought process that they will put into this particular process. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Friend. Anyone? I'll go the route again. Anyone speaking against? All right. I'll take the opportunity, councillors, of speaking in support of this. Look, during the campaign, and I'd like to formally state that neither the previous resolution that was adopted by council or this motion in front of council is in any way designed to attack or criticise any member of the state government. They are both simply requests for either transparency in the first one or fairness in the second and the third points. So please, no one interpret this as Livingstone Shire Council having a go at the Deputy Premier, the Treasurer or the Member for Keppel. That is simply not the case. It is just a matter of us seeking clarity and I suppose an indication of where to from here in terms of giving our residents a fair go. Where I have been particularly vocal during this campaign around the boundary review is around the aspect of fairness. Rockhampton Regional Council have used their slogan for this as it's fairer for everyone that those 3 suburbs go to Rockhampton. Now, I've continually said, how? In what universe is this fair, in the sense that 7% of our rates base would potentially be financially better off, but 93%, as Councillor Bello has previously pointed out, would be worse off. In what universe is that fair? And so I don't actually agree with the concept of fairness as proposed by Rockhampton Regional Council. Now, what we're asking here within this particular motion is that the Deputy Premier, the Treasurer and the Member for Keppel consider the Livingstone ratepayers and such that no matter what the outcome here, they are not financially disadvantaged. The word fair go here is the one being proffered. And so I fully support that, because no matter what the outcome of this boundary review is, it is not fair for all residents of this shire to be financially disadvantaged. And I commend Councillor Bello for bringing it to the table, and I commend it to the table for your support.
Hear, hear.
Would anyone else like to speak? I'll just open to the floor. Anyone? Councillor Hutton?
I would, but if either of the councillors online want to go first.
Okay. Councillor Bello? Beg your pardon. Councillor Eastwood?
Oh, Mr. Mayor, I've just had a coughing fit.
Okay. We'll let you continue coughing. I hope you recover quickly too, Councillor Eastwood, both you and Councillor Watson. There's nothing worse than being ill. Councillor Watson, did you want to make any comment? No? Okay. Councillor Hutton, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Justin, can we have the wording of the first part back on the board for easy access? Thank you so much. Members of the community and fellow councillors, when the freedom fighters of our shire campaigned with petitions of thousands of signatures, when there were public marches and a community-funded campaign calling on a previous government to allow us to have the right to de-amalgamate, we were lucky to have a government at that day who provided for a vote for de-amalgamation, but who lent us a responsibility. They said, if this is what you want, if this is the future you seek for your community, you accept responsibility for the cost of that. And each and every one of us, when we went into the polling booth for the de-amalgamation vote, voting yes or no, did so knowing that there would be a cost to our community and that we would carry. And yet, even recognising that it was going to cost us a little bit more to be independent, the majority of the former Livingstone Shire came together and voted overwhelmingly yes, that they wish to de-amalgamate from the combination of the former Fitzroy, Mount Morgan and Rockhampton City Council to return to being the Livingstone Shire that we all know and love. My challenge that I face with this current process is that there was never any petitions, there were never any public marches, there was never a public campaign funded from individuals. It's a process that's always been directed by and supported through the letter of a former mayor of Rockhampton to a local government minister, a letter from a former mayor of Rockhampton to the next local government minister when that minister changed, that took us down this process. We need to make sure that there is a fair go for all residents in this boundary review process, and I'm very heartened to hear the words of both the Rockhampton Regional Council current mayor and the Deputy Mayor of Rockhampton, who talk about making sure that there is fairness in this process and that no council's worse off. And we understand that today, with the closure of the public vote, which is but one small part of the considerations for the government, that the Palaszczuk government will shortly be making a decision as to the long-term future of the Livingstone Shire, the long-term future of the Rockhampton Regional Council, and in having that power, have the capacity to ensure that no council is worse off financially, and to ensure that the efforts that have been made by both councils in this last decade, we've had almost a decade now, 8 years, where the Livingstone Shire Council has been making decisions to maintain surpluses out of 7 of the last 8 years, where we've had rate rises to accommodate the costs of doing businesses in our shire, where Rockhampton Regional Council has operated with surpluses, where they've had rate rises to meet the needs and costs of their shire. These things need to be considered, and that's why we understand that the Minister cannot just consider the vote in itself, but acknowledges the Queensland Treasury Corporation report, acknowledges the advice from the local government and planning department, acknowledges the planning considerations for the future, as well as the sustainability of resources and the size of the sectors. This motion asks that in their hearts of hearts that they make sure that a fair go is held, that no council is financially worse off, that the efforts made by both councils since de-amalgamation to provide sustainable futures for our communities are recognised. We've made hard choices. We've reduced, if you look back to the 2014 budget of Livingstone Shire Council and where it predicted the operational expenditure of this organisation would be, we're $10 million less than where it was predicting we would be back in 2014. So we've done the hard yards. We've taken a hard road, but we've done it together because we saw that we had a future that was bright. What we're asking for is to make sure that those efforts are acknowledged in dedicating a future. It can't be said that, well, because your books look okay, that means you can probably swallow a little bit more. We've already swallowed a lot, and we've swallowed that because both councils acknowledged that when you get divorced, you get what you get, and then you have to deal with that and take your best foot forward, and that's what we've done, and I believe Rockhampton's done the same. We need to ensure that both councils and communities are sustainable. We need to ensure that no residents go backwards financially in any outcome related to this process. And that's why I fully support this motion and commend the Deputy Mayor for putting it forward and all councillors who supported having a special meeting for this process. And why I also believe it's important that both Premier Palaszczuk as well as every member of that state cabinet who will at some point be called upon to make a decision on this matter with recommendations coming from the Boundary Change Commissioner, they need to see and read the submission of Livingstone Shire Council. They need to read and see the Queensland Treasury Corporation report that speaks to the financial consequences to all parties to ensure that a fair go is had for every person who lives in central Queensland.
Thank you, Councillor Hutton. Councillor Ballard, did you wish to wrap up?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Appreciate everybody's comments. In concluding, I recognise that this process has caused tensions between both councils, and that's regrettable. I hope that we can move forward, though, through this process, considerate of each other, considerate of both communities, and I think Councillor Hutton touched on, I guess, that both councils since the amalgamation have applied themselves diligently in a disciplined way to try and provide not just sustainable communities but prospering communities, keeping rate rises to a minimum. And we've seen that happen over the last 8 years. Both councils, and I was encouraged to hear Mayor Williams on the radio say that he believed that both councils, in his opinion, even if these suburbs were transferred, that both councils are sustainable. And they're encouraging words to hear from our neighbouring mayor, because re-amalgamation puts fear into people in our community, and that is something that should be completely ruled out. And it was encouraging to hear Mayor Williams say that both councils have a sustainable future, and we are going to be stronger together moving forward as a collective of councils. The CQ ROC is a critical body of councils that represent Central Queensland, that we welcome each council's inclusion in that as we work collaboratively, not just for individual councils but for our entire region of Central Queensland, which arguably is one of the most strongest regions in Australia, generating enormous wealth for our country. And the stronger those councils are internally, individually, the stronger that whole region is. Livingstone ultimately has a powerful future and a mighty future, providing we receive a fair go through this process. I'm sure that Livingstone will go from strength to strength, as we are one of the 5 most favoured councils to move to by southern peoples that are leaving their states. They come to Livingstone and they come to Rockhampton. So together we are stronger, but I believe that it'll be through this process and the decision that the state government make to ensure that neither our residents do not financially go backwards, that we'll see that actually in the decision-making process. Thank you, councillors, for your contribution. Thank you, staff, for putting on this special meeting.
Thank you, Councillor Bello. We'll wrap up debate now, councillors, and go to the vote on this. Again, councillors online, can I ask you to either say yay or nay in terms of your vote on this? So, all in favour?
Yay. Yes.
Carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. All right, well, councillors, that's the only item of business on our agenda today, so I thank you for your attendance. I thank you our thanks go to councillors Eastwood and Watson from coming off their sick beds to join us, and thank members of the community who viewed it on live stream. Have a great day. Thanks very much.